All righty, good afternoon. Today is Thursday, January 21st, 2021. Let's call this meeting to order. It's our regularly scheduled Board of Trustees meeting. Pursuant to the governor's directive, we're holding it in person and through WebEx. If you would like to send a comment, please send it to boardcomments@lvccld.org, boardcomments@lvccld.org. First of all, let's do roll call.
All right. Chair Ortiz,
Here.
Trustee Bilbray Axelrod,
Here.
Trustee Benavides,
Here.
Trustee Wadley Munier,
Here.
Trustee Foyt,
Here.
Trustee Francis Drake. She's here. Oh, there she is. Can you hear us, Marilyn? Trustee Melendrez,
Here.
Trustee Raymaker,
Here.
Trustee Rogers,
Here.
and Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Okay. All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum. If everybody would please stand and let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, let's begin. I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all. All right, good to see our flag. Thank you very much. Appreciate it on a Thursday. Very nice day here in Las Vegas for those listening on. Now that we have a quorum and the Pledge of Allegiance, public comment, I'll say it one more time. Any comments can be sent to boardcomments@lvccld.org. Topics raised must be limited to the matters on the agenda. And then please identify which agenda item, and we will just take comments. We will not be able to act on those comments since they're not set for agenda. You will be given 3 minutes, or you can submit your statement in writing, and then we will read it to the board.
Felipe, can you be a little louder?
Sure.
Hey. Sorry.
You want my probation voice, right? In my probation voice, we made people do what they didn't want to do. So yes, I'll give you my probation voice.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now we have item number 3, board action to accept the proposed agenda. Has everybody looked at the agenda?
So move.
So moved by Robin Wadley Munier. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rogers, Keith Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's go through the regular board minute meetings. Let's see. Do we have the November 12th, 2020 minutes? Are they in our packet?
I believe they're not in the packet.
They're not in the packet, Sherry. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe we're going to skip that agenda item.
Okay, so let us skip agenda item number 4, since there are no minutes at this time to approve. Let's go through, next on our item is a presentation on the upcoming 2021 legislative session. And here to give us a presentation is Chelsea Capurro, who's with the Griffin Company. Welcome, Ms. Capurro.
Hi, everyone. Rest of you, even virtually. And sorry, our day closes at 5:30, and my husband is a firefighter, so you will hear a small child running around in the background. For that, she semi-behaved. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone. We're very excited for the opportunity to get to represent you guys. We're looking forward to it in this unprecedented session that we're about to have. I think everyone We got a little bit more guidance today, which is great news in terms of what the session is going to look like. So up until just recently, we weren't quite sure. We had some ideas and thoughts of what it would look like, but we did get some official guidance from LCB, and the first part of the session is going to be completely virtual, very limited staff and legislators, and a very small media presence in the building, with everyone else participating via Zoom and doing a lot more of this that we're seeing right here. So once staff and legislators and everyone in the building is vaccinated, they will start allowing the public to come in. What that will look like is you'll have to have your own vaccine card and take a rapid test. And so anyone that comes into the building will be taking a rapid test or prove that they've gotten the vaccine. So it's great that we've got this option. You know, I think that all of us have been a little unsure what it would look like, but it's good to have a little bit of clarity there around that. Good spot. Luckily, a great board member who had held BR, so that's great. We've already submitted all of the information for that. And can you guys hear me? It's kind of coming a little bit. Everyone's frozen on my end. Okay.
Just barely. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Chelsea, you might want to turn your video off. She might want to turn her video off for her presentation.
And if everyone else mute, some of us are not.
Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry about that. So we have the BDR in place, and we actually already had our first meeting on it. Danielle, Fred, and I, and then I will also mention Piper Overstreet from our firm, met with Assemblyman Flores, who is chairing government affairs. And we got to meet with him yesterday. Feels like forever ago, but it was just yesterday. And gave him a rundown of our bill, what it looks like. And he honestly said it sounds great, doesn't anticipate any issues. And should there be any, you know, we'll work through it at that point. But so far, we're looking good. So in terms of what the session priorities and what it's going to look like, number one priority, I think, for all legislators is the budget and what that's going to be, and the challenges that we're going to face with that. I think everyone's hoping that some federal money comes in that makes this a little bit of an easier process. But until then, you know, we're just going to be, Assemblywoman, I do not envy you or your position. You guys are going to have a lot of tough decisions to have to make. And then just keeping everybody in the building safe, and anything I think that's extremely controversial is going to have an easy out this session, because it's just going to be harder to have that kind of public participation
Chelsea?
that we're used to. Yes.
Chelsea, this is Trustee Wadley Meunier. You referred to the bills, but you didn't specify what the bills are. Could you identify the bills that you were referencing, that you're
Yes, absolutely.
speaking about? Because
So
there's
the bill
nothing
that-
in an attachment or anything for us.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's the bill that the board approved to move forward with that would change the qualifications for the executive director, or allow the board to vote on changing the qualifications for the executive director for the library district.
What are their numbers?
There's one bill,
Right.
then, right? There's one bill you're referencing to change the qualification for the.
Yep. Yep,
Yes.
it's just one bill, and at this point we don't have a bill number. We won't have that until session actually starts. We have a bill draft number, which I think it's
What's the
640.
BDI number?
I think it's 647, but I would have to pull that up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it has not been introduced yet. That will happen once we get into session, and we will send you all that language as soon as it's available.
Okay, thank you.
Chelsea, do you have
Yeah,
more?
absolutely.
Do you have any more in your presentation, Chelsea? This is Felipe Ortiz.
No, You know, I don't have much more other than just being open for any questions that any of you may have.
It's
Okay.
BDR 167.
Thank you.
Okay, let me,
Thanks,
Chelsea,
Shannon.
Chelsea, let me go around the board, the trustees, okay? Brian Wilson, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Trustee Rogers, do you have any questions or comments for the presentation?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. Trustee Sandra Raymaker, do you have any questions or comments?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Trustee Jose Luis Melendres, do you have questions or comments?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Trustee Elizabeth Foyt, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Robin Wiley Meunier, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just want to thank Chelsea for her information and sharing it with us tonight, and wish her well.
Thank you. Did I skip you, Kelly? Trustee Kelly Benavides?
Yes, you did.
Sorry.
Ms. Chelsea, forgive me if you've answered this question, but I know in the past they have sent us, I think it was like a monthly email with a review or an update. Will you be doing that? And if so, is it a monthly? Is it bi-weekly? What is your plan?
Absolutely, we will do that. We normally do a weekly bill tracking report, but that could be changed, the frequency, whatever works on your end. So we can send that, and then if you like a kind of general overall summary of what's going on, we can provide that as well. So, you know, whatever you guys need, we can get for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If weekly works better, just because I know how things change so frequently,
Absolutely.
would be definitely preferable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kelly Benavides. Trustee Shannon Bilberry Axelrod, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay, I do. And this is, and Ms. Caputo, if you can stand by for a second. The board voted to add a second employee. That would be an internal auditor. And this is for Jerry Welt. Our legal counsel notified me that his interpretation of the law was that it did not clearly state, and I don't want to speak for you, you can state what your case was, that it did not clearly state that we could hire a second employee. The workaround is we can hire the employee as a contractor and then get legislation changed to add a second employee. Having heard that from Jerry, I did ask for a legislative council bureau opinion, because at the end, there's a statement that says the trustees can do whatever is necessary to maintain the orderly function of the libraries. So I'm not an attorney. I did take our attorney's advice, but this would be the time. So Jerry, first of all, did I say that correctly? Am I misquoting you, or did I say that correctly?
Go ahead.
So at this time, I personally would prefer that we amend our bill draft request to add the second employee to the library district, or to a library district of 400,000 population or more. And because if we don't get an interpretation, if we get an interpretation that agrees with Jerry, then the employee becomes a contractor, and we can still work with that. But I would prefer to have an employee over a contractor being our internal auditor. And so that's my preference. So let me go down the list real quick.
What's the hiring?
Shannon, your thoughts on amending the bill draft request for a second employee for 400,000 population and more?
I think we're going to have to do 1 million, because that's what's in there already.
1 million?
So would still just be us. Let's wait. I did ask LCB, and I'm waiting for what their opinion is. So if not, I'm fine with that.
adding that language if everybody else is.
So the Legislative Council Bureau looks at the history of the bills and what was the intent of the legislature at that time. And they have a pretty good grasp. They do this regularly. But sometimes they miss a word or add a word and they do interpretations. So, okay, Kelly Benavides, your thoughts on whether we leave the employee as a contractor or ask for a bill draft request amendment or addition?
My vote would be for a contractor just because of logistics of having another employee. I think having a contractor is just easier to handle.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Robin Wadley Munier, your thoughts?
So you're talking about an auditor, right?
Internal auditor, we all voted on it and agreed to it.
Right. Okay. And what I wasn't understanding the way you explained what Jerry said. You're saying that we either have to amend our bill draft to say that we're going to have them as a contractor, right?
No, Jerry said we do not have the authority to hire a second employee for the trustees. And so in order to bring an auditor on board, we would have to hire him as a contractor. Unless the law.
We do have the authority. We do have the authority to hire ABC auditors to do a complete, like a forensic audit or whatever we
We want
want,
this to be an ongoing
and we
position.
can do that each year.
We already do that. Yes, we do that.
Okay, so
But we're looking,
I don't understand why we want to change it then.
this is trustee Foyt.
Hang on a
I
second.
understand
Elizabeth,
the
Elizabeth,
audit.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
Robin, so your question is, you don't understand why we need an auditor, or your question is?
No, I know why we need an auditor. We've been needing that. But what I'm saying is, I don't understand what the confusion is about this and why we're having to change a bill draft if it's something we've hired someone every year as a contractor, and that's been working well for us. I'm not understanding the reason for, I'm not saying I'm against one or the other. I'm just not understanding in my
Okay,
brain,
so-
why.
Okay, so if I may answer, essentially this individual is doing performance audits.
Right.
If you get a grant for 2,000 and you're supposed to work with 10 kids or 10 individuals, did they spend the money on what they said they were going to spend it? Did they work with 10 people? Do they have a financial accounting? Well, what we voted on is that they go through every department and every section.
Correct.
So when you get to hire an audit company, that becomes really prohibitive financially. It becomes de minimis. So it costs us more money to do that than hire either one as a staff member for the board or hire a contractor. And that's why it's important that the individual.
got you. Okay, now I got it.
Working for the board.
Okay. I would vote for us hiring an employee
Okay.
for the board that does it for the board of trustees, whoever they might be.
But that-
Elizabeth Floyd, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
I was just trying to explain it to her, that this is not the same as us having an audit. This is an individual who would be reporting to us on their
Yeah,
findings.
just the board, right. We would ask
Yeah.
as board, whoever the board would be 10 years from now or next year, they would be hiring them to do a complete audit. Yes, yeah.
Ongoing,
Yeah.
full
every year.
time with us.
Yeah.
No, not,
Oh.
this is an employee who would be staying with us.
Oh, going from one department to another?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In other
So
words,
we have to amend the BDR if we want that,
Well, we could hire a contractor.
which you said is cost prohibitive.
No, we could still hire a
no, if we
contractor.
hired a firm, but if we hire one person as an
Hire one
independent
person.
contractor,
So in order to do that, we have to amend the BDR.
We'd have to request, correct, have the legislature change the law.
Then I would be in favor of amending the BDR if that's what we need to do, so that we could have one that would this month, maybe every 3 months audit. I don't know.
Okay. Elizabeth Foyt, did you have any more questions or comments?
no, I understand where you're going.
Okay, thank you very much.
I didn't.
Marilyn Francis Drake, did you have any questions or comments?
I'm having trouble with my computer tonight. I'm sorry. I think we should probably do whichever is most financially best for us at this point in time, because we are going to be scrutinized on hiring a new employee no matter which direction we go. So I would say make it the best that we can get for the money that we need to spend at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Trustee Jose Luis Melendez, your thoughts?
I support whatever's going to be best for the board, money wise, and that is going to give us what we need in order to do the audit and all those other things to make sure that things are working the way they could be working.
Single audit.
Okay, thank you very much. Trustee Sandra Raymaker, any thoughts, questions, or comments?
My thoughts is I don't like having contractors. I would rather have our own employee. And so I would move to go ahead and do the BD, change our EDR.
Not an answer.
Okay. Dr. Rogers, your thoughts, questions, comments?
Of two options, my preference would be to go ahead and get the documentation updated so that we could just hire someone outright rather than going the contract route.
Okay. Thank you very much. Trustee Brian Wilson.
Question for Jerry, for me to get the opinion on this. Does it say, I'm approaching this from if it's not illegal, all things are legal. Does it restrict us to one employee specifically? I know it grants us the authority to hire the director, but does it explicitly restrict us from doing anything beyond that?
But the interpretation, and I ran this by Scott Abbott as well when it came up, is the powers of the trustee are specifically given by the legislature. And one of the powers given you is to hire an executive director, and that's it. So it's not that there are it's not like states' rights are reserved and the federal government doesn't. You only have the rights that were given to you by the legislature in forming what's now called a consolidated library district. I'll be thrilled if the Legislative Council Bureau disagrees with me, but I just don't feel I have enough there to say that you have the authority, and it's been the practice and direct statements by trustees since this was formed that their only direct hire and only employee was the executive director. So we have long acting history as well.
Oh, thank you. Quick follow-up to that. If we did hire somebody without an LCB opinion, say they don't get back to us till after the session because they're busy, whatever the case is. I know they get back quicker than that. But what would happen if the board did move ahead with trying to hire someone, at least going through the recruitment process, et cetera? You know, would that get us into trouble to keeping moving forward on the search in the process?
I don't, so because I'm not sure you were on the board when this happened, but we hired independent auditors to audit the HR department. So they did fundamentally, but in a bigger scope at one point, what Felipe has been suggesting. So we hired them, they audited the HR department, we had no problem. So if we're looking for someone that, assuming the bill passes or LCB says it's okay, as long as they're willing to work as an independent contractor initially, and you can renew, just like I am, and you can renew their contract every year, it's not an issue. And then if you decide to then offer them that position as an employee, once that is settled, I don't see an issue with that.
No, thank you. That clears it up very good. Okay, so in light of that information, Chair, my opinion is a contractor means future boards have to want to be responsible and keep the contract going. An employee is more likely to stick around long-term, both for the stability of the job and for the board's benefit in the future. So I would much prefer to hire a direct employee, either with an LCB opinion that says so, And if not, move ahead with a contractor while we cross our fingers and hope to get an amendment through that allows for an employee.
Very much. Just one quick comment. Also on your agenda today is for us to advertise for the position. And have Jane Wisner advertise for it. But the way it reads, if you go through the backup, when you get a chance, the person's being hired as a contractor with a potential of becoming a permanent employee. And it's a one-man operation. They have to do it all. They don't get any staff. They don't get, so they're not comprehensive audits. They're just performance audits. And so that's in your backup data to go out to solicit, to find people that want to do the job. Having said that, Trustee Raymaker, will you make the motion for me? The motion, or I can make it. Jerry, am I allowed to make the motion? It's the chair?
The chair, you should be.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is I would like to make a motion to ask our lobbyists to submit an amendment to the bill draft request, asking that libraries with 1 million population or more be allowed to hire an internal auditor as the second employee of the trustees.
I'll second that. Raymaker.
Okay, and then of course, if the Legislative Bureau says we can do it, we can withdraw that. We can withdraw that request or that portion. Okay, are there any more questions or comments from anybody?
This is Chelsea, just really fast. I'll jump in. If that's all right. I don't know if I
Yes.
can speak since I'm okay. I just wanted to say I think it's a good timing on this. Obviously, the legislature only meets every other year. So if LCB does come back and say that we need legislative authority to do this, then if it's after the session, we'd be stuck in a position of having to wait another 2 years. So I think you guys are making a wise decision to put this into the BDR if LCB allows us. I think one thing just to be careful about is they do have a single subject rule, but I think that because the way the Assemblywoman put in the bill draft request, I think the description's pretty broad. So I think we should be okay there.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and go around. Brian Wilson, how do you vote on the motion?
Yay.
Okay, Trustee Rogers, how do you vote on the motion?
Yay.
Okay. Trustee Santa Raymaker, how do you vote on the motion?
Yay.
Okay. Trustee Osalis Melendez, how do you vote on the motion? Trustee Melendez, did we lose you? How do you vote on the motion?
I don't think he's with us.
Okay, I'll come back to you and then, all right, Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Elizabeth Foyt, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Trustee Kelly Benavides, how do you vote on the motion?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Robin Wadley Munier, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Shannon Bilberry Axelrod, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Felipe Ortiz. And Jose Luis Melendez, did you leave us or are you still there? Okay.
Sorry, I lost my internet for a little bit.
No worries. How do you vote on the motion, Trustee Melendez?
I vote yes.
Okay. All right. Motion carries.
Chair Ortiz, if I may clarify, is this a motion then that's going to go for item D under new business? Because the original agenda item was just for a presentation and not board action, but we can.
Jerry?
D.
Okay, thank you very much. Item D.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you very much. And sorry about that, just that we had Ms. Chelsea on there on the line here. So thank you for the presentation. Let's move on with our agenda.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Looking forward to working with you all.
Page 3.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for a briefing. If somebody would like to make the motion.
I do so move.
That's
Trustee Foyt. Mhm.
Trustee Floyd, is there a second?
I'll second Raymaker.
Okay, so for the public, give us about 15 minutes. And this is an executive session for a briefing. And we'll come back to you.
Chair Ortiz, we're going to need a motion to go back into open session.
Thank you. Robin, will you make the motion to come back?
I'd be happy to. I move that we return to regular board meeting
Second.
and move out of executive session.
Thank you. Second by Brian Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Anybody opposed? Okay, we're back in session. Thank you for everybody else waiting to get back online. We appreciate it. At this time, Fred provided a written report. If anybody has any question for our acting director, Fred. Okay. And
this is Trustee Foyt. I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is it appropriate for me to ask Mr. James at this time about a question I had about the financial report we received?
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to library reports. And Elizabeth, if you want to call up the financial report.
I do want to call up the financial report.
Okay, so we are on there was no item 6.
3A.
So we're on item 7,
3A.
calling item 7.3 small a financial report.
Okay, Foresto, are you on board?
Yes, I'm here. Hopefully everyone can hear me. For the record, Acting CFO, Floresto Caballas.
Okay, Elizabeth, go ahead. You had a question?
Okay, I have a question. I received, as I believe all the other trustees did, a copy of the comprehensive report. It reflects a time period from July 1st of 2019 through June 30th of 2020. My question is, and I know it's somewhere in here embedded, where does it show the $500 a month for the automobile allowance given to all the members of what is called the Executive Council? And when did this start?
That has always been in place or being paid to the executive employees as far as I can remember. It's not directly or specifically broken out in the financial statements. It's included in salaries and benefits in total. And so it's what's included in the broad expenditure category. So you won't see it carved out individually. But again, as long as I've been here, almost 20 years, executive employees have received the car allowance.
Mr. James, would you agree that it's been that long?
Yes, it was that long. It's been, yeah, I've been here 21 and it was.
Excuse me? Say that again?
Yes, it is. I've been here 21 years and it was instituted under the then exec director. You can't hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, it was instituted before I got here.
Okay, now it was instituted, of course, for the executive director. That I fully understand. That goes to someone who really rides herd over everything.
Right.
Where did it get expanded to all of these people? Because I have 8 people in addition to our executive director who are members of what we call the executive council who are receiving this funding. And it has never crossed my plate during the almost 4 years that I've been on the board. And it came as a total surprise to me as well as some of my other board member contacts. Explain to me how this has been a right for these individuals?
It was a benefit that was offered to executive council employees, and that was long before I got here. I mean, it was offered before I got here. So
well,
it was.
I would like to propose that we have a serious discussion about this, and that in fact it be placed through our chairman, Mr. Ortiz, to eliminate it.
Let me know when we can ask questions.
So do you want to put that on a board item and bring it up for discussion and to eliminate?
Discussion and possible board action, yes.
Okay, and do we want to do it effective for July 1st? Or do you want to be effective immediately?
Well, that's for discussion.
Yeah.
Next.
I was appalled to discover that, particularly when we had a time period when all of our branches were closed and people were working exclusively from home.
Over 4 months,
Um,
$200 an employee?
Hang on a second, Robert.
$500.
I mean, 1,000.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
No, it seems these people are already riding at the very top of our salary schedules. They're not union members, I understand that, but it's an appalling use of money, particularly if this stretched through the 21 years, it also stretched through a time when we really had to tighten our belt and when we lost employees as a system because of tightening our belt and cutting back on services. It seems incredible that this perk stayed in place for that entire time. And I would love to hear what other board members think about this. I was appalled to discover this.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and for your request. Robin, you have the floor. I cut you off.
Well, I just like, if we're gonna have it as an agenda item, I'd like a breakdown of if it started 21 or 26 or whatever years ago, what that item started at, what, amount of money. And I want to see the increments of how, if it changed, or have they always for 20 plus years received $500 a month? I would hope not. But I'd like to see that broken down as to when it changed. And, I'd like, if it stays as a benefit, whatever denomination, I'd like it to be shown in our budget as a line item with benefits. In other words, when it says benefits, I'd like to see that broken down. And I think that would be, again, communication and helpful to trustees when they're approving budgets, and especially like we just recently have gone through this past year. And that might be something that should have been halted. Can't go backwards on it, but when people are working from home, we certainly don't need a $500 a month allowance, especially when they were getting paid to sit at home and not work.
Just so that you, just so the last point is that we'll get you that information, but it's been $500 for the executive director and $400 for the staff, the executive staff. And it's been that same amount for 20 years.
Oh, my word.
Well, I have a question to ask. If that was true, then why was there discussion that we were going to have to give $600 to Kelvin coming in because he needed to get more than the rest of the executive council, which we're getting 500?
We don't get 500, we get 4.
That's not my understanding. But in keeping with that, and we had a little bit of discussion when we had our last special session, and I really didn't get a clear awareness, is can you really explain to me, or have it explained to me at a future time if need be with paperwork, how vacation, sick leave, comp time is actually worked? Because I did bring that up during our last special session, and I really am not certain I got a full answer from Mr. Serpico.
Okay, we will, we can send that to you. We can send that to you.
I think everybody would like to see it. That's why I think it should be included as a board item.
So you want to know what we pay out in vacation time? I mean, what we give for vacation, sick leave?
How it's figured, yes.
Okay, how it's figured, okay.
And how many days can roll into the new year, or how many days can be carried. I know with the federal government, you can only take so many days into the new year, which is why trying to do business in December with anybody in the federal office, it's a little tricky.
Okay.
So if they're a senior employee, stop laughing. Anyway.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get you the information on how the accrual for vacation, sick leave, and that's it. That's pretty much what it is.
All right, but it won't be just for me. I want it brought up in an open meeting.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We'll put it as part of the HR report.
And
Trustee Foyt, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Forrest.
I was just going to offer to provide a brief overview now, if that helps.
Sure, but I still want paperwork.
Okay, but just as a
Because if
summary,
you- Let's say you were being hired, fresh to the system, and they were hiring you. What are they going to lay out in front of you that you could actually look over and evaluate and be making a educated decision on?
a brand new employee can see their vacation accruals in the HR or human resources information system, and they accrue 5.54 hours every payroll period. So that's roughly multiplied by 26 pay periods a year, around 140 or so vacation hours every year. And that maxes out at 320 hours. So any amount, they would top out basically at 320 hours and would no longer accrue vacation at that point.
Are we talking those who are considered the executive council, or are we talking the rank and file?
That's every employee in the district, including executive employees. The only difference would be for an employee who has been with the district 10 years or longer, that accrual actually increases to 7.4 hours. So they accrue at a faster rate. So that would be, again, multiplied out by the 26 periods. And that's after 10 years of service, 10 years of consecutive service with the district.
Right.
But they also top out at 320 hours and no longer accrue vacation hours above that level. And just FYI, because of the increase, this was negotiated with the Teamsters Local 14 at one point. The employees are also eligible to cash out 40 hours of vacation a year to avoid the risk of actually topping out and hitting the 320-hour ceiling if they choose. So that's a one-time option they can elect each year. That's helpful for those who don't take as much vacation as others. The sick leave accrual is calculated at 3.7 hours every pay period. So that's a little less than 100 hours of sick leave. And again, this is all employees, regardless of length of service. And these are full-time employees, I'm sorry, just to clarify that. And there is no ceiling on that amount. It's unlimited. So this is the reason that some of the voluntary employee separation program payments to our employees that retired recently had such large payouts. It was primarily attributable to very large sick leave balances. These are individuals that didn't take a lot of sick leave, which doesn't have a ceiling. And we're talking about 20 plus years of service. So that's an overall summary of the accrual calculations.
All right. Like I said, when I asked the question during the discussion and passing of Mr. Watson's new contract, and Mr. Supico answered, he kind of wrapped it up so it sounded like there were still other perks out there that only come to the executives.
Aside from the allowance, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that that executive employees receive in addition or above and beyond what other employees receive.
Mr. Floresto, I think you missed the fact that the employees get an extra day off. I don't know, I forget what it's called.
Yes, all employees receive one floating holiday every year. And if an employee does not use more than 40 hours of sick leave in a year in their anniversary period, they receive another 3 days of bonus time.
Make sure that's in the report.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, anything else?
No, I think this is good, and I'll look forward to actually seeing physical things in my hand that I can evaluate and perhaps ask more questions about. Thank you very much for the time.
I need to ask a question for clarification. You just want what he just repeated to you, the information in writing? Okay.
All of the value that the employee, a new employee gets as a benefit, not just the question she asked. Okay.
Oh, I do have one last question, if I may. The automotive or vehicle allowance, taxable or non-taxable?
Taxable.
That's correct.
Taxable?
Taxable, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Wilson, Brian Wilson, do you have any questions on this report?
Yeah, just for the agenda item, can you please bring forward these 8 people that are getting this allowance, how often those positions actually drive from their home to a location other than the office they work at, how often they're going to the main branch where they could then just be picking up one of our library vehicles we already have first. I'd just like to understand what have we actually been getting for the vehicle allowances? Are people traveling all over the place with this? So if you just can include, you know, the travel responsibility, some kind of summary of that.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Wilson. Dr. Rogers, any questions or comments?
The only question I would have, and it's maybe wrapped into the current request, would be, is it part of the employee contract, the perk that we're talking about, or perks plural? Is that something that's part of the contract, or is that something that's sort of an a la carte that's after the fact?
That's Floristo. Go ahead, Floristo.
Executive employees, aside from the executive director, no longer have contracts. So it's just a practice that was implemented. Well, it's always been there as far as Fred and I can remember, but it was included when executive employees had contracts. And that was an item that was noted. But again, aside from the executive director, no other employees have contracts with the district.
Or whatever the offer is, however that manifests, are the perks part of that negotiated agreement with that employee?
I don't think they have a negotiated agreement.
Well, I mean, just like we're talking about the current executive director, we're saying we're negotiating salary and other things. So,
Trustee Rogers, this is Jeffrey Serpico. I believe they are part of the initial offer letter. It does reference an auto allowance to the employee, but I will have to check and verify that and send that.
Well, you
and that's what I said. So we have to be careful. And
was that part of your discussion?
May I finish my point? Since my question, may I finish?
Go ahead, Dr. Rogers.
Okay, so that was what my question is. So if it's part of some sort of written agreement in the offer letter, then that may be binding. And I don't know, there may be some trade-offs with how we may revisit whether that's something we want to remove from someone if that's part of an agreement.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Dr. Rogers?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Senator Raymaker, trustee, any questions or comments?
Nothing at this time.
Jose Luis Melendez, any questions or comments?
No, I just look forward to everything that's being asked for by my fellow trustees. I look forward to reading that report and kind of get a better idea or handle on what is all paid out and how it's guaranteed or whatever. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake, any questions or comments?
My only question is, at this present time, we have 8 people in the executive branch that are receiving this, and the director. So that's 9 people altogether. Has it all, and you said this has been going on for a long time. Has it been going on for a long time with all of these 8 people and the director, or have people been added along the way?
It does include the executive the executive director and the executive council. There have been other employees who do a whole lot of driving. Instead of filling out the mileage report, I think they get a car allowance, and I think they were regional librarians.
Yeah, that's right, Fred. I was going to point that out. The regional branch services director also get a car allowance because of the extensive driving they perform.
But is this been since the beginning, these 8 people? Or is that something that's added on along the different years?
Has the executive council expanded is what she's asking, so that now we have 8 of you.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
The question is, yes, we've expanded. When we expanded community engagement, we expanded, and so the development, development and planning, everyone that came on and received a car allowance as part of their onboarding package. When this started back in, way back when, I mean, before I was here. And so it was part of a package. When I got a contract, I also got a contract that had a car allowance in it as part of my package.
So I would also be led to believe then that these 8 people and the director, they in no way have to justify their driving, where they drive and how many miles they put on their car a year and things like that.
No,
It's
we don't.
just part of their contract.
It's just part of our contract. You don't get reimbursement for driving to, you don't get reimbursement for driving to Mesquite or Laughlin, anything like that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robin Wadley Munier, do you have any questions or comments?
Okay, so it's my understanding though that those members do not have a contract anymore. So I'd like to have that clarified when we have this discussion next month.
We no longer have contracts. Only person that have contracts.
Okay,
is
so
the
then
executive director.
this would not be written anywhere. So, you know, if it is, then we need to see that. And did indeed these employees receive this money while we were shut down? And I know that some did have to, you know, drive around and stuff, but the majority did not have to drive anywhere and were working from home. Many of them couldn't work because you can't be working distribution and you can't be working the reference desk if, you know, you're not, the library's closed. And did Mr. Serpico, he has a contract, so is that in his contract? Was that written into it?
No, he doesn't have a contract.
Okay, so he does not.
He does get a car allowance. But let me say this, even though we don't have a
Well, you can just
contract-
bring all this to us at the next meeting. We don't need to discuss it now, Mr. James. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just saying there's much information, so then we won't have to ask any more questions.
Okay.
Open communication.
Thank you very much.
Transparent, okay.
Trustee
Thank
Kelly
you so
Benavides.
much. Thank you.
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Shannon Bilberry Axelrod.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I do have a question, but it's on the budget, it's on this item, and this is probably for Fred. My concern is that the salaries are getting prohibitive, number one. And this is for the appointed or executive. And so I have a question there. Secondly, we're placing a lot of people into the PERS system, and it's going to show next year with the higher salaries and a higher payout. And so first question is probably for Fred. I think, Fred, you had shared with me that you had asked Mr. Serpico, or he was going to conduct a study on the salaries for the executive. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that was correct. The salaries, it was going to be on all salaries, including the executives. Every employee, every position, that was part of his duties that once he gets on board and a lot of his department cleaned up, is that he would do a workers' comp study and to do a market analysis on the salaries that we're currently paying employees to make sure that those salaries are fair as according to the market.
Okay, the second question that I have for you then, Mr. James, is that are library managers classified employees or are they exempt employees?
If you're talking about branch managers, they are union employees.
Okay, so at what point do exempt employees start? Just the executive committee?
There's one level of board, I think is 125s, 126 or 127. It's a grade level where the non-managers are no longer in the union.
Okay, how many are those?
It's not very many. It's not very many at all. There's most of all the branch managers are in the union, and most of these positions are union positions. So you got branch managers that are union. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but that's what was negotiated.
Okay, no problem there. And so for the employees listening, we're not trying to take away your money. We're trying to be transparent. We're trying to make sure we're equal with districts our size. We have to watch our pennies. And so having said that, Mr. James, how is it that the exempt executive employees get their regular raise, a cost of living raise, and then have the range moved up, so now they're getting a double bump. When did that start and how does that work?
That was, as far as I remember, that's the way it was started before I got here. That was negotiations with the union where when they gave cost of living increases, they also, as far as I can remember, they increased the top of the range. So every time you got a cost of living at that time, they called it a cost of living adjustment to the scale, the whole scale moved up. And then you got also a merit. So you got a merit. Now, you can also be topped out, but the only thing that you're getting is a cost of living increase because you've already reached the top of the range. But the range kept going up every year, and that was negotiated.
So realistically, the range never got topped out. Every year, they just keep moving the range.
Yes.
So if I say, okay, the most we want to pay for X employee is 150,000, basically all they're doing is getting the range moved up, and so we have no knowledge of the pay increases. Which, if a regular employee at 60,000 gets an 8% raise, it's different than an employee at 130,000 getting an 8% raise, on top of having the ability to get another raise because they are not ever going to be topped out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
As long as they don't top out when they're getting their raises within the range.
So for me, that's simply unacceptable because, again, we're not trying to take anybody's money away, and we can't do it anyway. But I would like to see that on the agenda because how this range kept moving, the goal line kept moving, all it did was continue to increase the salaries, which now become unsustainable and unacceptable in my mind. And so please add that on there too. And this will probably be for the discussion, and then the next director can also work with Mr. Serpico to do the employee salary competitive market analysis so that we can see where they stand as compared to everybody else. And just
what I'd like to add to you is that in the previous years, I'm not quite sure about the CFO in the beginning, the original CFO, but in the beginning, the CFO was never, when I got here, the CFO was never involved in the negotiation. You only just said, here's what they came back with, can we afford it? And it was pretty much cut and dry. So we were really never involved in the negotiation, but we were only involved in every time they came up with what's the impact on the budget if we gave a 2% increase and a merit, or 2% a cost of living increase and a 2% merit. That was the only extent of your financial people involved in the negotiations.
So that even makes, in my opinion, even worse because they kept moving the goal line without the director approving it because the first director said it was okay. Did I phrase that correctly?
Yes, yes, it was always that way, and you just kept increasing it until you got to where you have these high salaries now.
Wow. So unacceptable. Mr. Serpico, hopefully you do, your study comes, I know it takes time, and we get a better handle on that, but I'd like to have that as a part of, if I may, Elizabeth, have that part of your agenda item also added.
I agree.
And so I get it. If you're exempt or unappointed, as they call it in some cities, you can't double dip on the pay raises. And that's what's occurring and has been occurring. No employees are blamed for this. But I sure as heck would like to find out how they let this continue on without anybody saying anything. And Jerry, we're going to ask you on that too, so please be prepared, okay? Not right now, but when we have the conversation.
Together. I did the original contracts before all the EC had individual contracts separately negotiated. Then Dan Walton, they stopped. You'd have to go to Pat because he's been in all the negotiations.
So
Actually, Jerry, remember it was Dan that started those contracts. And it was stopped under the next person after that was God, what was her name? The
Jeannie.
Jeannie. It was stopped under Jeannie.
Yeah,
But Dan Walters, it offered the top people with contracts. And it was a way that you didn't renew the contract. If you didn't get a renewed contract, you were out. It wasn't like, it had a time specific. It was 5 years, then you had to get a renewal on a contract, just like the executive director. And so the second director after Dan, after 1 or 2 years, I think, did away with the contracts.
So what I'm hearing is we value and appreciate Scott's work, but he doesn't get the opportunity to say how much an employee gets a raise. We do. And I'm talking about the exempt employees. Because if there's a scale, we need to stick to the scale and not move the scale, keep moving it on without anybody knowing it's been moving on. So that's what I want on the agenda for further discussion. And Fred, thank you for delineating how that process works and shedding light on that. Having said that, does anybody else have any comments on the financial report? Oh, I do have one. I'm sorry. Mr. Floresto, one last comment on this.
Yes.
I'm not a soothsayer or a predictor, but I feel confident that our economy is coming back. I would like an agenda item to see if we can start putting back, I believe it was 17%. Oh, I'm sorry, I forget how much we were putting back in our construction budget. And he's online.
Yes, we're shooting for a 20%. Oh, can you all hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Due to the current economic conditions, we've been trying to maintain a 20% fund balance. That was noted in my, updated forecast and budget report. So any amount above that 20%, we are planning to transfer over to the capital projects funds. And it looks like we are in a position to do that. That amount, based on our current calculations, as you pointed out, Chair Ortiz, the economic conditions are improving, and assuming those stay the same, we're basing this projection on the current conditions. And as long as nothing drastic changes, we do expect to be able to transfer about $6 to $7 million at the end of fiscal year 21 from the general fund to the capital projects program. And that would be the amount that would be in excess of the 20% ending fund balance that would still provide a healthy reserve in case the economy does take another turn. And I'll point out also that whatever amount that we transfer will be going to the critical capital programs first. I pointed out in recent meetings that the building maintenance repair program and the IT replacements program in particular are prioritized. And because we transferred no funds from the general fund to the capital projects fund this current year, again, because of the challenging economic conditions, those programs will be exhausting their reserve at the end of next fiscal year 22. So we were looking for approximately $4 million to transfer to those programs, no matter which direction the economy went in. Fortunately, things are improving. Again, as noted in my report, property taxes are stable. CTX, or consolidated sales tax revenue, is coming in higher than expected. And we're actually on track to experience savings in other expenditure categories too. Definitely the services and supplies category and the voluntary employee separation program, the VEST program, should be paying off at some point also. That should provide savings eventually in salaries and benefits. So any amount over the $4 million that we have earmarked for the critical capital programs would be available for other goals in the capital projects fund.
Thank you very much. And for anybody listening, public, there is no extra money. This money should have been spent on more computers, building repairs, and it wasn't. So when we put the money in there, and I'm understanding from you, Mr. Floresto, that Mr. Cabayas, that's going to happen. So we won't need a motion. So just like, do I fix the door? Do I fix the air conditioning leak? What do I do until I get more money? And so having the ability, we'll transfer that and take care of our capital improvements request in priority order. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair Ortiz.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that. Does anybody have any questions on the capital improvements budget being slowly restored so we can go back and fix the things that we should have fixed. Does anybody? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. James, Mr. Caballos.
Yeah,
Appreciate that. Does anybody-
usually, as a point, the budget session is coming up this year, and that's when we make these changes. And this is what you're going to be voting on in May.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other program library reports that need to be called up?
I do, Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Branding report. I don't know if this is more just a reporting of a possible bug, but there was some anomalies in the data. Facebook engagements quite a bit down. The drop in unique visitors to the website for November was 13%, which is pretty significant outside what I would call normal for that month. And I know that an email blast was sent out in December. I see a bunch of them in here in the report, and I personally haven't been getting them for some reason. So they're clearly still going out, and I know at least one other trustee was having issues with receiving them too. So I'm wondering if the drop in analytics might be that we're having some issue with our email blast provider where it's not getting the eyeballs and the same engagements back to the website, social media, etc. So I don't know who would be the one to look into that. So I just
Mr. Al
pointed out.
Is he online? Al, can you respond?
Yes, Trustee Ortiz. That is a branding and marketing function. We are not really involved in the website or reporting on the website.
So you don't maintain their website?
No, it's a contracted website. It's a software as a service by Bibliocommons. And it's maintained by branding and marketing, who has a web developer who maintains it.
Okay. So if
I
Betsy,
think this might be an email issue more than the website, is what I'm saying. Is I'm wondering, I know I haven't been getting the emails, but they're clearly going out because they're in here in the reports with the stats on them. So I'm wondering if that's why the numbers on Facebook and the website are a little lower than I would expect, is we're having an email delivery issue with whatever that email service is.
Yeah, that's also a contracted service. And it could be that they're sending out so many that whoever the provider is your email provider is maybe classifying it as spam, because there are various ways of determining what's considered spam. And one of the ways that they determine that is the number of people that a particular email is sent to. So we could look into that, but that's a branding and marketing function, and that's also a contracted service. So that's not something provided on our systems.
okay,
I
so
just wanted to bring it to the attention, have them ask the provider if they're seeing a deliverability issue higher than normal or something like that. Just a check to make sure nothing's wrong.
Will do.
thank you, Al, for jumping in there. Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question, but not for Al.
Okay, go ahead, Elizabeth.
And I'm not certain, forgive me, that I don't know the gentleman's name who replaced Mr. Rice, but this is a general service question.
Mr. John Vino?
I thought that was right, but I wasn't sure. I would just like to maybe talk about at our next board meeting how we direct our contracted security people to be not just effective within the building, but actually hit the parking lots. I visit enough libraries to know that I'm not seeing physical movement through the parking lots, and we are having some thievery involved with our patron parking. One of the things that disappeared from the Sahara West branch was a woman's catalytic converter, and they're a very hot topic to be stolen these days. They contain rare earth minerals, and they're very valuable. I would not want to have that happen to anyone else, or myself for that matter. And I'm just curious, in other words, what are the parameters? What's the mission that we have given these people for that? So it's just I guess I'd like to know more about that.
Doesn't look like John has access. Looks like he just has a camera. John, are you on?
But this is something for a future meeting.
Okay.
So for the next meeting, Mr. Vino, yeah, what is the role of the security people? Does that include outside? And if not, can we get them to go outside if you can, for the next meeting, okay?
They have a tendency to linger in pairs near the front door, along with an extra employee that's not security. And clusters don't do much for me. I have to say, I like foot traffic.
Can I jump in for a second? This is Al Prendergast for the record. I do know for a fact that the security guards do patrol the outside of the buildings. That's one of the reasons we extended the Wi-Fi system outside of the building so that they can wear the badges that communicate with staff inside the building. So I know that they do patrol. What I don't know is the frequency and where they specifically go. But I do know that they do patrol outside of the building.
Or they are instructed to go outside the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we'll make sure, because I do know that they have what they call a special, there's a one that they're supposed to go and tap at all the areas that they're supposed to go, and they're supposed to do it on the intervals. But we'll check into that to make sure that they're following that, because they're supposed to follow that. And if they're not following,
Can I just get in here just for a second? Marilyn Drake here. I volunteer 2 days a week in the warehouse. Now, I haven't been back there, for the 2 times a week for a while now with the restrictions. But I remember back when we had a security gentleman that came through every time, twice, while we were sitting back there. And I would say in the last 6 months or more, or even more than that, while I'm back there for my 4-hour stint, I have never seen a security person come through there. They would always come through and then go out the back door to the warehouse and then back around again. So I'm not saying they do or don't, but I have asked another employee too, and it seems that they are not doing that. And I notice the same thing. When I come in, there's 2 people standing at the front, just sitting there at the tables, or just standing there. So like I said, we'd like to know what their instructions are to make sure that they're not, whether they are or aren't following them.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the security issue? Okay, thank you very much. Having heard nobody else wanting to pull any items.
I was just going to say, when I came in this evening, I was by myself, and the 2 guards were together and an employee, and just standing there. So just FYI, maybe they just need a review.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is unfinished business. We have none at this time. Actually, let's go back. I'll entertain a motion to accept the reports.
Motion to accept.
I'm sorry, start again. Identify yourself.
Jose, motion to accept.
Motion to accept the live reports. And then Sandra, was that you?
No, it's Robin.
Oh, Robin Wadley Munier seconds as a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Sherry, the motion carries. Thank you so much. Next item is unfinished business. We have none. Under new business, I believe it's probably Danielle. You're up next. This discussion of possible board action to appoint the Mesquite Quality B Board of Directors.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Danielle Milam for the record. This agenda item relates to the Mesquite Quality B Inc., a nonprofit that was established in December 2017 as we entered into new market tax credit transaction related to the Mesquite Library construction project. In the Articles of Incorporation for the Quality B, it stipulates that a 5-member board of directors shall be appointed annually by the Board of Trustees of the Library District. 2 of those board directors should be independent directors who are not officers, directors, trustees, or employees of the district, and 3 board directors shall be appointed from nominees who are current or former employees, officers, or trustees of district. And with the retirement of Fred James, as we are now proposing to replace Fred with acting CFO Floresto Caballas as president, Kiba Creer as secretary treasurer, and I tried to make Randy Entz a senator, but I'd like to correct that. And the directors will be Randy Entz, Tim Wong, and Michael Sanders. Any questions?
Okay, no questions. Ms. Sandra Raymaker, will you make the motion for Mesquite? Do you have it there in front of you?
Yeah, I move to accept the appointment of Mesquite's QA LICB Incorporated Board of Directors as presented.
Is there a second?
Jose, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Daniil.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion and possible board action regarding a contract award for outsourced call center operations provided by Unique Integrated Communications for 3 years with the option to extend the contract for 4 one-year renewals. And that would be Leo. Is that Leo who's presented it, or who's presented this, Fred?
Chair Ortiz, I'll be presenting that agenda item. For the record, Floresto Caballas, acting CFO. Good evening again. The district began outsourcing call center services in December 2015. Unique Integrated Communications, or UIC, manages this service. UIC is the sister company of Unique Management Services, the district's collection agency. The call center handles patron phone calls, mitigates the impact of high call volume on staff, and gives customers a faster response time. Originally, the outsourced phone calls included electronic resources, which is anything related to digital services, including databases, downloading e-media, and help with different devices. Collection agency inquiries, so all calls for customers sent to Unique Management Services, and evening and weekend reception calls when the reception desk is closed. After monitoring this service and receiving positive feedback from customers and staff, the district expanded the service in September 2017 to outsource circulation and reference desk phone calls. Among other things, UIC provides library service information about programs, classes, and events, information about a patron account, and answers to ready reference questions. UIC did excellent work assisting customers with inquiries and library service availability where possible throughout the last year. The service has helped staff improve the patron experience by reducing long lines and wait times. In fiscal year 2020, the call center answered approximately 42,000 calls that lasted 104,000 minutes, and that was at an annual cost of $142,000. However, fiscal year 2020 included nearly 3 months of facility closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so that lowered call volume. The total cost would likely be closer to $160,000, but for the pandemic. And in the current fiscal year, we expect similar call volume. But the contract being proposed tonight is not to exceed $180,000 annually. The statute, Nevada revised statutes, provide exceptions to competitive bidding, including sole source contracts, and UIC is currently the only call center vendor that specializes in library services and works with Innovative Interfaces, which is the software developer for the district's Sierra library system. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. I do have a question first. Floresto, how many calls, not this past pandemic year, but previously, how many calls did they take for us?
It's approximately 42,000 calls in a given year. This is varied over time. The pilot program began in 2015, so the calls were much lower. Again, in 2017, the services expanded to where they are now, and they're averaging about 3,000 to 4,000 calls a month. So for a total on average of about 40,000 calls in a given year.
Thank you very much. The reason I asked that question, it comes out to my calculations, $4.28 per call for an individual that can answer library questions. And we are not tasked with hiring an employee to sit for wait for calls or pay the overtime if the call goes over, the weekend time, and so on. Having said that, let me go down the list here. Trustee Shannon, Bilberry, Axelrod, did you have any questions on this item?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Trustee Kelly Benavides, did you have any questions on this item?
Just a quick question. Do we know where the call center or where the people that are picking up are actually at? You know, we hear the joke of it being sometimes overseas and, you know, the accents, those type of things. Could you elaborate a little bit more of how they work?
Yes, the call center is in Indiana. The district has had contact. The librarians are actually answering these calls. And so we know that they do operate here in the States. It is Indiana, and they're not being outsourced out of the country. And these are very experienced library staff that are coordinating with the district to answer patron phone calls. In fact, they were trained by our library district staff directly as we started expanding the different areas that the call center handles.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Trustee Benavides. Trustee Robin Wadley Munier. Questions, comments?
I don't have any questions or concerns at this time.
Very much. Trustee Elizabeth Foyt, questions?
Nothing at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake.
No, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Jose Luis Melendres.
None for me, thank you, sir.
Okay, Trustee Sandra Raymaker.
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Brian Wilson, do you have any questions or comments?
Quick question. Are we paying just a flat rate annually, or are we paying by call volume?
Yes, the current rate is $1.31 per minute.
Okay, is there anything to be say? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand we're operating at reduced staff. Was there any savings to be made by having our own staff take as many phone calls as possible and keep them working, or was it more beneficial to keep it going to the call center while we're running this reduced time or staff from home?
In our experience, there's an efficiency gain, and it's much more of a benefit to utilize the call center service, which is why the service expanded over time. During the closures, having the call center was especially an advantage because the call center was fielding calls from patrons during that time when all staff were staying safe at home. And the call volume did go down. As opposed to 4,000 calls in a month, they dropped to around 200 calls in April when the closure started for the full month. And in May, it was roughly 700-800 calls. But those patrons were able to get their questions answered during the closure. And there are plenty of benefits that are probably apparent on the library floor by using the call center. But I can also cite an example in financial services team where one of my team members could be answering a question about collections for an hour, as opposed to spending time working on another project such as processing payroll. So it's been a huge time saver there, and it really frees up, staff members to be more productive.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. I forgot to ask this, Mr. Caballes, do we get a synopsis of the complaints or return calls? Who gets that? Do you?
Library operations monitors those reports more closely if there are, complaints or other significant items that should be brought to everyone's attention. But we also monitor all of the statistics, and the statistics provided by Unique is very robust. And so they drill down in pretty good detail exactly the types of calls they're handling. And so we can pick and choose what we follow up on. And we also control all of the areas that they're managing and servicing as far as calls go.
Thank you very much. Having heard that, I feel very comfortable with this contract. Who would like to? I'll entertain a motion to approve, to authorize, and whoever has the motion in front of them. Who would like to make it?
I have it up in front of me. If you don't mind, I'll read it.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers.
Our motion to authorize the executive director to award a contract to Unique Integrated Communications to provide outsourced call center operations for 3 years and authorize staff to extend the contract for 4 one-year renewals, subject to funding availability and vendor specifications outlined in the contract terms, for a total amount not to exceed $180,000 per year.
Is there a second?
Raymaker?
Senator Raymaker? The only comment I have, Mr. Cabayas, is make sure you bring it back to the board. We're renewing this as an automatic. Okay. Having said that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries. Thank you. Good job. The next item is the discussion and possible board action regarding a contract award for the purchase of theater lighting equipment for various district locations.
This is Jerry. In view of the prior discussion with the board regarding contracts, I review this. It's entirely possible I'm going to make changes to it. So do you want it to come? Do you want us to copies of the altered contract? How do you want us to handle this?
How much of an altered contract is it going to be?
I don't know to get into it. The most common areas are ongoing funding. We need an app for that. I haven't reviewed this contract.
Okay, so
yeah, those kind of things. So I never like get into it. But
got you. So
odds are I'm going to make changes.
whose purview does this fall under? Mr. Vino, is that yours?
Yes, sir. If you can hear me.
Yes. Would it hurt to move it over to the next meeting, or do you need it approved now?
They've been waiting almost 6 weeks.
Okay. Very good.
So I'll make it quick. Good evening, trustees and Council Welch. John Vino, for the record, acting General Services Director. Funds are allocated in the capital budget funds to purchase replacement theater lighting equipment for the Clark County, Summerlin, West Las Vegas theaters, as well as the West Charleston Lecture Hall. The equipment is needed in need of replacing due to the age and functionality deficiencies. An invitation to bid was advertised in the Review Journal. It was posted on the district's website, emailed to minority chambers of commerce, and posted on the Nevada government e-marketplace NGEM. The bid opening was held on December 4th, 2020. We received a total of 10 bids. The full bid results were listed in the agenda item. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Production Resources Group, also known as PRG. We enclosed the disclosure of ownership principles form for the Production Resource Group LLC. Staff is requesting authorization to award contracts for the purchase of theater lighting equipment for various district locations in accordance with bid number 21-03 to PRG for the amount of $106,128. And of course, we're ready if anyone has any questions on the bid process.
Okay, thank you very much. Shannon Bilberry Axelrod, did you have any questions or comments on this request?
Could you just remind me, and I know we've gone over this before, but I'm sorry, my brain is a little fuzzy right now. We do ask on the ownership, we ask if it's woman-owned or minority-owned or physically child, we have all those things. Are any, I know we just do it on the basis of who comes with the lowest price, but have we ever discussed or anything, having some sort of priority given to like a minority-owned business, or is it we just go with the lowest no matter what?
It depends on if it's a full open bid. We do have in our lower amounts, so a public bid, everyone's included, and everyone has to give us that form. In our lower amounts, if we're under 50,000, every bid has to be, we have to receive bids from minority companies. As part of, if we only have to get 3 bids, one by definition has to be from minority.
I recall that. So, but there's no, but based on a amount like this, it's just whoever comes in lowest, and then subsequently after the board becomes aware if it was.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Kelly Benavides, any questions or comments on this request? Trustee Benavides? Okay, we'll come back to her. Trustee Robin Wadley Munier, any questions or comments on this request?
No, I don't have any questions or comments. I think it's needed.
Thank you very much. Trustee Elizabeth Floyd, any questions or comments?
I would speak in support of doing this. It's quiet time in the theaters. It's the ideal time to put everything in place and be rip roaring to go when we open up again in a more full way, our community as well as our library theaters.
Thank you very much. Trustee Merlin Francis Drake, any questions or comments?
No, I agree with Elizabeth. Right now, it's a good time to be doing that kind of work and getting things ready to go so that hopefully we will be seeing productions soon.
Amen. Jose Luis Melendez, any questions or comments?
I agree. I say we move forward and get the things that need to be fixed or replaced, get them done.
Okay. And then Sandra Raymaker, any questions or comments?
No, I agree. Let's get it done.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Rogers, any questions or comments?
I agree for the reasons that Trustee Ford outlined previously.
Thank you very much. Trustee Brian Wilson, any questions or comments?
I'm in support of it.
Okay, very good. Trustee Kelly Benavides, any questions or comments on the lighting?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Trustee Foyt, do you have the item in front of you to make the motion?
I can if not.
For that, Shannon, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Shannon, please go ahead.
Sure. Motion to authorize staff to award a contract for the purchase of theater lighting equipment for various district locations in accordance with bid number 21-03 to PRG for the amount of $106,128.
Who will second that?
I'll second it, Raymaker.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Vino. Motion
Thank
carried.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Trustee
Okay, that-
Sanchez,
Yes,
This
go
having
ahead.
the last contract, I'm probably gonna make changes to. So what do you want me to send them
Yes.
to the board?
You,
or-
you have permission to make changes, unless
Okay.
anybody opposes.
But you're making changes, well, just, they should be brought back to the board, at least in writing. That's what we're asking for.
He's not making changes to the amounts. He's making changes to, for example, do they have liability insurance? Do they have a
Right.
crawlback clause, things like that?
Nothing that we would be discussing later?
The issue,
Sorry, Jerry.
Well,
we'd like to discuss.
Jerry, it sounds, if I may, that they're just kind of lawyer kind of changes, just to make sure that they're covered and things like that, right? I mean, it's not.
They're safe to have in the building.
Right. Is that correct?
Yes, well, what I'll do, just to add, is when I do my final approval, I'll include the chair as well. So at least the trustee is not going to make changes to the.
Excellent idea.
And if we have to have an emergency meeting, we'll call an emergency meeting.
Okay, that's what we'll.
Okay.
You can be in the spotlight if the lights are working.
Thank you, Jerry. Is that clear enough?
Oh, God. Get her home, folks.
I'm
Get her home.
tired and I'm traveling in the morning early, so let me out of here.
Okay,
Okay.
the last item, a couple items, the last item on the agenda is a discussion and possible board action.
We already passed that.
Regarding the contract for the,
We did that.
executive, no, we have executive search group with Jane Wisner for an auditor. And the contract would be for 20,000 and for in-house search.
Jerry said that when we passed.
For an in-state search. So at the end of the day, there's a description of the auditor, which we voted on in the past. And they would go out as a contract employee with the possibility of becoming a full-time employee. So they'd have to take it like that, and they may never become a full-time employee. And that's the first thing. And then so Jane Wisner would, since Mr. Serpico has a lot of stuff on his plate, Jane Wisner would go out just through the state of Nevada and try to find that person who's willing to do the job and be a one-man or one-woman operation. And so the request is for 20,000. We usually don't go out for a vote unless it's 50,000 or more, but I thought it'd be important for the board to vote on it. Does anybody have any questions?
Trustee Rogers, I can't remember, what was the up to annual amount for this position.
Mr. Serpico, what's the beginning and the top salary?
I will need to pull that up, Trustee Ortiz.
Okay,
Give me a minute, a couple minutes.
sure.
Oh, disregard. I see it on one of the range here.
Okay.
Here it is, yes, 79.
I see the range in one of the documents.
Yeah, pay grade 128, 79 to 103, depending on the qualifications, and they top out at 127, 584.
Is that with benefits? Does that mean any benefits or what?
Well, depends. If they're a contractor, that's all they get.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not there yet. If it's an
Yeah,
employee, they will
okay,
come
but
back.
that's the salary range for a contractor.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Benavides, did you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time. I'm comfortable with the option of contract first, possible full employment later.
Thank you. Trustee Shannon Bilberry Axelrod?
I concur.
Thank you. Trustee Robin Wadley Munier?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Trustee Elizabeth Foyt?
Absolutely, thank you.
Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake?
Okie dokie.
Trustee Jose Luis Melendez?
All good.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, any more questions?
No further questions. I concur about moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, any questions?
Thumbs up emoji.
Okay, so ideally, she'll bring back 3 people for us to select 3. We're not gonna go through the same as a HR or director search. She's gonna narrow it down, because this is a real finite job, performance audit, so depending on how many we get and who wants to take the job to be a 1-person operation, so, okay? So I will make the motion to approve a contract in the amount of $20,000 with Jane Weisner of Destiny Executive Search Group to conduct an in-state search for an auditor, subject to review by council. That's my motion. Can I hear a second?
Second, Wilson.
Second for Brian Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Our next meeting under announcements, we have our next meeting on February 11th at 6 o'clock. I'm going to play it by ear personally. If I see the numbers go down, I'll be in person, and everybody's welcome to join us in person. If they're still high, and high is 20% positivity rate, then WebEx. And for those of you who want to stay WebEx, you can still stay WebEx. And we'll let everybody know where, but I'll probably be in person on February 11th. Okay. Do it. Let's see. Shannon Bilberry Axelrod, do you have any announcements?
Just this is my next month will be my last meeting. I am off the board after over 10 years. So I will be joining you via WebEx from Carson City. Definitely bittersweet.
Thank you for your hard work and your commitment to volunteerism. Thank you so much. Trustee Kelly Benavides, any announcements, comments?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Robin Wadley Munier, any announcements?
No, we're gonna miss Shannon though, but I know she's working hard. We're gonna come visit her.
We're all staying with her. She's taking us to Adele's.
Thank you. Trustee Elizabeth Foyt, any announcements?
No, not at this time, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Trustee Marilyn Francis Drake, any announcements?
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you so much. Trustee Jose Luis Melendez, any announcements?
Get your shots.
Oh, very good. Yes. Trustee Sandra Raymaker, any announcements?
Not at this time, thank you.
Dr. Rogers, thank you. Dr. Rogers, any announcements?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Wilson, any announcements?
No, thank you.
Mr. James, any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay, well, I'll make it. That's James' last meeting. Kenny Rogers, got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, and he's going to retire. But I don't know the exact date, but That'll be the last meeting he'll be at.
That would be my last meeting. I'm sure it'll make a lot of people happy, but not more happier than I am.
More golfing for you. Okay. Ms. Sherry Walker, any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Having not heard any public comment, this meeting is adjourned at 9:21.